this way. Welcome, Kristen, to this podcast, Intentional Living with Suzy Rawlins. I am so excited to have you as my guest because you truly are an inspiration in our community with your story and just the way you show up, and I love it. So I'm honored to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. I was excited and nervous at the same time, but nervous is all part of excitement, I guess. So
Right? Well, I'm just looking at you sitting there and I'm going, girl, I want the guns. Like mine aren't quite as cool as yours. So I'm like, don't be nervous.
I
The
have,
first part is good.
I have a lot of lighting on me.
Right? I was
But
like,
thank,
dang, she's not even flexing.
thank you.
So it's a casual conversation, and I just want our viewers to kind of get to know you and how you look at intentional living and how you inspire other people. And so let's just start with maybe like a little bit of background about yourself or how you like came into where you are as far as your career.
So I am Kristen McFarland. I am a dedicated personal trainer and accountability coach. I'm really passionate about helping women in general. I had a little bit of a struggle. I've always been in the fitness world my whole life, but I kind of fell off probably around 2011. I had a huge change in my life, and so I kind of fell off and just lost myself. And I was lost for about a year, and I started drinking, and that was hard for me. So I just had no direction. I was hanging out with people that had no direction, and finally, my son, my older son, he was probably in fourth grade at the time. He gave me a look when I was at one of his assemblies, and it was basically a look that he didn't want me there. And that was probably the biggest turning point in my life. Um, I began to tear up a little bit, and I changed my life from that at that point. And I realized like I need to get my life together. My boys are watching. I have two boys. They're now 16 and 21. But at the time, again, they were in fourth grade, and they were very young. And so I realized I was becoming my parents is what the problem was. So I changed. They were my anchor. They saved my life. So when I say my boys saved my life, it's a true story. They literally got me away from, the drinking, and I had a whole new perspective in life. I started working out, and that's when the intentional living came into my life, like the true intentional living, because I realized that if I don't change my life, if I'm not mindful of every decision and action that I take, my boys will either follow me, or they're going to have a vision of me that I don't want them to have of me. And so that was basically the start, and that was probably around 2015 of my journey.
Isn't it funny how our kids, like, you don't see yourself as a parent, like as a leader, but you are a leader. Like you're leading them and they're watching and they're seeing, and damn, the mom struggles because I've been there.
It was, I had been with their dad for almost 9 years, and we weren't married. And so at that 2011 is when I left him, and I was on my own. And that's when I was lost. I didn't know how to do it on my own. And so that's what started it. But I realized I was strong, right? I was strong enough. I just had, unfortunately, to hit rock bottom. For me, that was rock bottom. I feel like now sitting here going through, been through everything I've been through, everybody has a different rock bottom. And you hear that saying, like, you have to hit rock bottom because the only way back is up. And
Yeah.
so, my boys and I, we have a great relationship. My older one and I, like, once I started changing my life, I had this heart to heart with him, and I'm like, I will never be that person again. And he started crying, and he's like, Mom, I've seen you, you know, rise above everything that you just went through. He's like, and that gives me hope in life that I can get through any struggles that come my way. Like, it's okay. We can always overcome it. And so it's just all lessons. And so, like, just that conversation I had with my son really showed me, like, being intentional with living is what living's about.
Yeah,
And
for sure. So you kind of answered one of my questions, which was like, what was your turning point, right? To that. And I know that like I've adopted the saying intentional living because for me, it was about what am I intentionally doing each moment to make sure that I'm not sliding backwards in different things. And so when I say that to people, like the look on their face when you say, are you living intentionally? They're like, hmm. Because I think sometimes we're just on autopilot and we're just like, oh, well, I'm just going to eat this and I'm just going to go here and I'm just going to do this. And none of it was intentional. But when you have to stop and think, if I put this in my mouth, then I have to track it on my tracker or whatever, which tracking food, I hate tracking food. But
same.
but but anyway, like, but the thought of if I put it in my mouth, I gotta write it down. You know what I mean? That's intentional. If
Yes.
I sit here on the couch and I don't move, am I gonna hurt tomorrow? That's intentional, you know? And you need rest days, you need all the things, but I love asking people that question, like, are you living intentionally? And like, what does that mean to you? Do you have any specific strategies or like tools that really helped you through that journey?
Well, the tools that I used were I started off with self-help books, and I really had to figure out why I was choosing to not deal with my problems. I had to figure out what problems I was covering up that I was staying numb for,
Mhm.
um, that I didn't want to deal with, that was too scary to deal with. And that's usually the ones that you need to work on first. So I bought a couple of self-help books and I started working on my limiting beliefs.
Mm.
And I'm working on my own book right now. And one of the things in it, the main thing about it is like I grew up in a really, really rough childhood with, my dad was a drug addict, he was an alcoholic. My mom turned to that when he left. And so it was constant. And although I didn't turn to those, like the drugs and at the time the alcohol, like I didn't start drinking until I was, until I had kids. So it was later in life, but like you can still be an addict with your thoughts. And
Yeah.
I realized that my addiction was were my thoughts, right? So I had no self-worth. I had no good thoughts about myself. And so those were what I worked on. My limiting beliefs. Why did I feel like I wasn't good enough? Why did I feel like, so I worked through all of that. And I feel like when I talk to my clients, that's the one thing that I ask them is, like, how do you feel about yourself? Where
Mm.
do you stand with, like, how are your thoughts day in, day out? And being intentional, sometimes, like you said, autopilot. I was on autopilot my whole life until about 2015. I might have made good decisions, but that's because I didn't want to be like the people I was growing up around.
Yeah.
So it might have been unconscious, intention, but it was not like you said, thinking about the food that's going in your mouth. Or for me, it was my thoughts,
Yeah.
and it's really all of it. Once you get into it and you realize it's for me, being intentional is how I treat my body, how I treat my mind, and how I treat my heart, and
Mhm.
everything that falls into that. And that's what I think being intentional.
I read a quote or like a little saying or whatever a long time ago, and I remember printing it out and putting it in my kids' room. And it says, your diet is not just what you eat, but it's what you consume, it's what you listen to, it's what you hear, it's the people you hang around with. And I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday about when you're doing so much personal growth and you're growing, you end up outgrowing people in your circle and they get angry at you because they think you abandoned them and yet they just chose not to grow with you. But then we have this guilt because we're like, oh well, they've been my friends. And and there was intention in that personal growth, right? And there was there's intention in like who we choose to hang around with, who we choose to hear, listen to. And I had a mentor one time say to me, if you can't control the 5 people that you spend the most time with, like let's say there's somebody in your household that's a negative Nancy, okay? Um, and you really, or maybe somebody at your work that's that way, and you really can't control that. She said it's who you listen to. So when you have your earbuds in, who are you listening to? Who are you following on social media? Because that can help change that inner critic. And I know just this week, I don't know if you saw my reel, but man, I was not having doing my workout the other day. I got up
I
later.
did see it.
I got up later. It was hotter. I couldn't find my earbuds. And then when I couldn't find my earbuds, I was like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm not listening to the woman in here. I am not doing that whole thing and listening to her junk. And like, so I get it, the inner critic, and everybody always says, Suzy, you're always so positive and you're always so whatever. I'm like, this is the most powerful space, and we all have it. We all have that self-talk.
Yep. It's so true. I am a huge believer that we have that inner critic. And I actually read a book called Dethroning Your Inner Critic. It's a
Mm,
smaller book, but it's written by a psychologist. She's amazing. And she has you name your inner critic.
mm.
And so I named my inner critic Nay, N-E, for negative energy.
Oh,
Because, yes, because so I would recommend, because it helped me. So learning your inner critic
yeah,
and acknowledging that your inner critic is there, but choosing and deciding and being intentional about not listening to your inner critic is going to be
yeah.
the biggest turning point for a lot of people, because that's where all of those negative thoughts come from. That's where my addiction was right there in my inner critic. And
Mm,
it was because I had, growing up, I didn't have a lot of people that put a lot of positive things. I had my grandparents, so they are the ones, that showed me both sides. But I
yeah.
mean, they showed me the good side versus my parents. But, again, like they weren't always around me. And so I wasn't always being fed that, as parents, we're supposed to be that for our children.
Yeah.
And so that was another thing. Once I started learning that, like my children was able to see me be confident and stand up for myself, advocate for myself. And they're now, can do that, seeing that I've done that. And it's just, being intentional is a whole entire balanced thing that is so amazing when you learn to do it.
Well, and it's a minute by minute thing because for me, it goes from you start with a negative thought. You can change that really quick. You can say, I'm not strong enough, I'm not whatever. I mean, you can go down that path and in 30 seconds go, you know what? Piss on it. I'm not believing that. And
Yes.
flip it and be intentional. And so you don't have to spend all day in that. And sometimes we do spend all day in that, but you don't have to. You can
Right. I,
just like
I
that.
feel like, I feel like there are people that don't want to, they have that ego.
Mm.
And so they want to feel that way because it makes them feel better in a sense. I don't know if that makes sense. But having that ego, even within yourself,
Yeah.
like, no, I can be angry. I want to be angry and I just want to go through this emotion. We are allowed to have that. We are allowed to feel emotions and be angry, right? But I think it's also knowing when, there's a time for everything. The Bible says there's a time for everything, right? There is a time to be angry. There is a time to be sad and happy and positive. But, there are times where we can change that, and being able to put your ego down with your inner critic can definitely help you rise above that and see a different side, in my perspective, in my opinion.
For sure. I love that you went down the route of, your inner critic, your self-talk, the things like that, because we're the hardest on ourselves. And I think oftentimes we feel like we're failing and somebody else is watching us, whether it's in person, whether it's on social media or whatever, and they're like, dang, she's really rocking it. You know,
Yeah. I try to put my story out there so everybody knows that I'm not, my life hasn't always been that way.
yeah,
Because that could be discouraging for some people, like, oh, well, and with social media, so many people are putting a certain part of their lives, but not the other parts, and that's okay. But I think that it doesn't tell the whole story. And so I really do try to be authentically myself, which means, I'm going to be vulnerable and let you see my vulnerability because we are human. All of us are human, no matter what walks of life we've been in. Like, we all have the same opportunities to change.
Yeah.
And so I don't ever try to go on social media and be this, I'm an independent woman, because I haven't always been, and even now I still have my vulnerable states. It's normal and it's healthy to allow yourself to go through that, but also allow yourself to know, all right, got to get myself back up, time to go, time to get grinding again. I've had my time.
Pick yourself up and do it again. Um,
Yeah.
do you have any like specific like daily habits or weekly habits that help you stay at your best, like living your best, most intentional life? Do you have any certain like habits that really help you?
I do. I read a lot of books. I don't always have time to, like, I try to read at least 10 pages a day.
Yes.
So that's one thing I do. I always keep that positive stuff. They're self-help books, but they're considered self-help books, but they're books that are positive and,
Yeah,
things that keep you on more of a, positive note, keeping your perspectives out of the dark.
for sure.
Um, but I also do, I do a lot of goal setting. And so, like, on the weekends, I'll look at my week ahead and I know that I have a busy schedule, but I always put myself in the schedule. I
Yes.
never I never forget about myself. And that is one of the biggest things that I do. Because how common is it for especially women? I mean, men do it too, I'm sure, but like, I work with women, so I'm going to refer to women, but specifically women tend to put themselves on the back burner. They put their kids first, they put the tasks at home first. I I work with clients one-on-one. I put myself in the schedule like I'm a client. So I would say for anyone listening, put yourself on the schedule like you're one of your children or like you're an employee of yourself or whatever it is that you always put on the back burner. Put yourself as that person.
Yeah, make your time non-negotiable for sure.
Yes. Yes, because at that point then you can be intentional about, okay, now I have the time, now what am I going to do with it, and so I do a lot of goal setting for myself. I set up what I'm going to eat, what I want to focus on, what training I'm going to do, what kind of positive things that I need to keep in front of me.
Mhm.
And one of the things has been what we were talking about earlier, off the charts, is what I had mentioned to you. Like, when I feel like I'm worrying too much, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. So for me, the thing that's been helping me a lot is if I'm worrying, I'm trying to take it all on myself.
Yes.
Whereas when I just trust the process and I know that God has a plan for me, so I'm learning to trust that. Do the work and whatever happens is how it's supposed to happen.
Yes, and that's hard. It's hard to walk through that and just and
Yeah.
trust. You mentioned earlier you're writing a book. Do you have it coming out soon or is that a little bit more long term? What does that look like for you?
It's probably long term because I'm getting pretty detailed with my life and kind of what I went through. So I want people to understand the true struggle of what I went through, all the way up to this point. Because sometimes tell a part of my life and they're like, what? You went through that? What? So I'm kind of getting really detailed and taking my time on it so that everything comes out and it's all out there. Um, but I'm excited for it just because it's been a long time waiting
Yeah,
to
that's
get it all.
exciting to tell your story. I know I've written in a couple, well, I wrote in one collaboration book and I'm writing in another one right now. And it's only so many words, right, of your story. And so you share, and it puts you in a very vulnerable place because you're like, what am I going to share? What am I willing to share? And I love that. I love that you're writing your own book and you're going to share it because we each have a story, and God gifted us with everything that He wanted us to have. and you're supposed to inspire somebody that I'll never meet. And I'm supposed to inspire somebody that maybe you'll never meet.
I love that. I love that so much.
And
Yeah.
that's why there's always a place in this world for all of us, because my personality, your personality, whatever, maybe they're different, or maybe we're just going to run in different circles.
Yep.
So to me, that's why I'm doing these, and I'm interviewing people that are very much in the same field that I'm in,
Mhm.
because there's room for everybody.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
all have our own story, our own niche, our own, I guess, approach, right? We all have the same goal in mind. Like, let's live healthy, let's live intentional, let's live our best life, let's make memories and have experiences. But here's my approach. Do you like it? If not, great. Kristen's my friend. Would you talk to her?
Yes. I love that so much. I'm a huge advocate and believer in lifting other women in general up. I do like, I'm positive with everybody, but like I said, I work with women, and that's because I am a woman and I understand women. But I'm a huge believer in lifting other women up because I had to be lifted up by somebody, right? And so like it's just as God says, like, love is the answer. Like for me, love is the answer, and that is shown in actions, in my opinion. And when, I'm sure you know who Coach Shar is. Her and I do the same thing for the most part. She does a little extra nutrition, but like we lift each other up, and there's room for both of us, right? And so that was an example, but like I am all for supporting and loving on whoever wants to come to me for mentorship or whatever. And because I needed it, right? I was there and I still need it. I mean, it's not over. My story's not over yet.
Right. I
But
think I think once you think you finish the path of personal growth, I think there's nothing left, right? Like you should just always continue striving to just be your best self, not in comparison with anybody else, but what is your best self and how can you keep showing up that way?
100%. And that's how you become more and more authentic, living your authentic life. You're not trying to be somebody you're not. You're not wasting energy on trying to figure out why they have this or why they're looking like this and I'm not, or whatever, whatever it may be. It's just, there's so much. There's so
There,
much that society put out there that just weighs on us, and it's sad.
yeah. No, I'm all about living our most authentic, just being ourselves and figuring out what that journey is for us. Because like when I started CrossFit with Nadia, I was terrified of it because everybody kept saying like, you get hurt, they push you too hard, blah blah blah. And like I will tell you, I am the queen of modifications because
I love it.
I am doing it, and I'm not getting hurt because if I get hurt, then I have to take time off, and that doesn't help me. And so even though there was people in the gym doing better or lifting more or faster or whatever, I was like, no, I'm just over here doing the thing, just the queen of
Yep.
modifications.
That's awesome. And but like you said, you're doing it, right? You're doing it. There's so many people that are still afraid
Yeah.
that aren't doing it. I just had that conversation with myself. I run twice a week, and my runs are nothing compared to what they used to be because I'm getting older. My body's feeling it a little bit more. So I had to come down from where I was at. So it was like, okay, let's go 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Now I'm realizing like my runs, I'm going to go at my pace. I'm not trying to be better than anybody else. I don't need a beat of time, right? So there's like certain things that I have to like, hey, it's okay, just
I
calm
know
down.
when I did my first 5K, I wanted to hit average for my age range. And I did. So then I was like, okay, cool. Like, and that was actually easy. So then I was like, well, let me hit like a little above average, right? Then I have a friend that's only a couple years older than me, and she's kind of a badass. And so I was like, I just want to beat her by like 30 seconds, even if I have to shove her down at like the finish line. Like, I just want to beat her by 30 seconds. But like for
That's
the
fun.
competition.
But that's fun too. And that's good. So if you're there, I always tell my younger girls, like, take advantage of being in your youth and having all that energy. You can still have energy when you're older too. I mean, I have energy, but it's different. It's just a different energy. But no,
Well,
that's awesome. Like, and if that's what pumps you up is like a little bit of friendly challenge, that's even better.
We did the 5K over here, not this year, the Memorial Day one here in Maricopa.
Oh
And
yeah,
there was an 80-something-year-old, I don't even know how old he was, and it's still in my freaking head that he didn't just beat us, but he straight whipped our tail. And I was like, you know what? Age is just a number. Like that
it
guy,
is.
he didn't just like pace along the side of us or come in like 10 minutes before us. Like he took like third or second in the whole shebang.
That's awesome.
And I was like, okay, no excuse.
Okay, right? That's awesome. Hey, I see it all the time when I'm doing my half marathons. I see all these older people. I'm like, okay, get it. I can't catch you, but that's awesome.
Right? Exactly. Well, as we kind of wrap up, what would you like our audience to know about you and or your business, like your ideal client or how they can find you? I'll put some links that you gave me in the description of this video, but what would you like our listeners to know about you and your business?
Um, I am a very authentic person. I work with women, ages roughly around 30 to 50, but there's some, younger and older in that age range. But I'm all about helping women, whether that's becoming healthier, more balanced in your day to day, working on you personally, or just your fitness or just your nutrition. I have the guidance that you need. So I'm there for you. I see a lot of personal trainers and it's great, but I see a lot of personal trainers that are always posting about themselves. And I'm kind of not that person. I do post like different workouts here and there of myself just so people can, see what I do.
Yeah.
But I feel like I want to put the emphasis on my client because my client is the one that's going through the journey. And so I'm all about just, inspiring women and helping women out of wherever they're at, whatever they need help with. So that's what I do. I do groups. I do have free fit camps. So I'm for the community, and that's for everybody. So I'm all about community and giving back. That's my way of giving back. So I love that too. I'm very
And
passionate
I've
about
done some of your fit camps, and they're fun. And I feel like because I've done them with you, and you feel it's very like you feel safe in it because if you have to modify, like
it.
nobody's judging you.
Yes. And that's what I wanted. When I started the group, it was around my time of needing somebody or something outside of what I had been doing. And so I created that because there wasn't out here. And so that was in 2016 and we're still going. And I just love all the friendships and all the people I've met. And it's just been amazing. So that's really one of my side passions is like my fit camp that,
Yeah.
has been around for so long. And so I'm all about that. I'm just, this is me. I'm not trying to be anybody I'm not. And, I just want to help people. It's really what I'm about.
I love it. Well, thank you for being a guest today because I love your heart. I love everything that you put into our community and everything you do. And I am so glad that you said yes to this.
Thank you for asking me. I feel honored and it's been fun chatting with you and I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.